Good afternoon and welcome to everybody to this Roadshow presentation that's not quite on the road about the Fulbright program. So it's very nice to have people here. It's great to be able to talk about the program as we launch into another year. So at this stage, we're talking about the 21-22 program. So for applicants across a wide range of disciplines and awards that the Fulbright program has to offer. Hopefully, this is an opportunity for you to learn something, maybe make a decision to apply. I'll say from the very front, do apply. And I'll talk about the reasons why you should apply as we go through the presentation. I have here with me on the panel as well, Rowan Gallagher from the Fulbright Commission, who's going to stage manage everything. We have Martin Roper, who's the campus ambassador for Sligo, and we have Cecily Nilagic, who's a recent Fulbright FLTA awardee. So both of them will come in and talk about their experience very shortly. I'm going to first just run through the basics of the program. I will say that a lot of this information and more detailed information will be available on the website. So anything you might have missed or that I didn't speak about, the detail will be there in greater detail on the website. So progressing along, if I can. The program is in its 75th year, so that's quite a successful, long-standing program. It's set up in Ireland in 1957, so that was 10, 11 years after initially it started. At the time, Senator Fulbright, who fought for the program, fought for repatriation and use of after-war funds from 1946 onwards, his expectation was that he might have 8 countries involved. But in reality, we're up to 180 countries, give or take, the program at this stage. So I think it's been a very successful program, and there are lots of reasons why, and I'll talk about those as we go ahead. I represent the Irish Commission, so we run the program in Ireland, and we run the program for US students and citizens to come to Ireland, and for Irish people to go to the US. So why apply for Fulbright? We're looking at who are we looking for? Well, we're looking for students, scholars, artists, teachers, professionals. That really covers an awful lot of people from all disciplines. You know, and I stress that again, from all disciplines across the board. The opportunity is there for people to research or study or teach or lecture in the US if you're an Irish and going applying to the US. What do awards provide? Well, there's obviously the monetary grant. There is visa administration, which at times is no small thing. Accident and emergency insurance while you're in the US. Cultural and professional programming, that can be very specific, and it can be very, you know, the person you meet, you know, the next day that you walk out of the door. So there's a lot of opportunity associated with that. And then ongoing support and links to a global network of Fulbright alum. I would always say that Fulbright can be as, you know, engaged as you wish. It's there for you to pick up as a Fulbrighter in particular. The experience can be experience of a lifetime. It provides recognition for who you are and what your passions are and where you want to go. And it's a badge that you can wear with great honor throughout your life, and you can pick it up, you can dust it off, and you can connect again with people globally, either as Fulbrighters or just people who know about the Fulbright program. So it's can be very much of a family. And Fulbrighters very often step in and step out, and some remain engaged and some don't until a later stage, and then step back in again. But very much it's always there for you. So Martin is going to talk shortly, but and this information will be available to you. I'm not going to read it out as such, but we're very pleased to have him here, particularly as a Fulbright campus ambassador who can talk about the program and advise you and maybe tell you the do's and don'ts. I'm going to tell you some of the do's and don'ts today as well. So as I've said before, you know, if the executive director is suggesting something, it's usually a good hint. And you might see I've actually put some hints through the application process itself for good reason, because we want you to have the best application that you can possibly have and the best experience of your application. We also have then Cecily Lunchik, who's here to talk about her experience as a Fulbrighter. She taught Irish in the US, so she brings a very interesting experience to that, and she'll talk about the Fulbright program and her experience across it. So we'll come back to both of those after I've just gone through a little bit more detail about the actual program. So establish your eligibility. This key aspect for any program that you apply to. But the Irish awards are open to Irish and EU citizens who have been 3 years or longer of residency in Ireland. We're unique among all European commissions in that we provide for this. You should demonstrate a strong rationale for where you're going to the US. I'm going to repeat that point to say, please demonstrate a strong rationale for where you're going to the US, because you will be asked to justify that. You must comply with the 2-year home rule visa requirement. So after you come back from the States, you should be resident in Ireland for 2 years. That only has any impact if you want to go for a longer term residency visa back in the US again. If you don't expect that, then it's not ever going to apply to you. You cannot be a dual US-Irish citizen. You cannot be living in the US at the time of your application, and you cannot have recent extensive experience of studying or living in the US. You can have experience of the US. If you're really unsure and you can't find the details on our website, then please do ask the program managers if you have a very specific idea in mind, or if you think that you spent a lot of time in the US and you're wondering, does it impact, please do come back to us. The application process, I've been saying this, and awardees say this, and people who haven't got the awards have also said this, that really there are no real downsides to applying for a Fulbright award or doing this type of application, because you learn and you develop so much even in doing that. For people who have applied for different awards before, it typically, myself included, it's typically about your research, or typically about the intellectual property you might be going to develop, or the papers you're going to write, or the information you're going to dig out. But really this Fulbright award is a little bit different. It's actually about you. It's about where you want to go, what your passions are, where you want to develop from, how you're going to use the program. So all of that is really, really good for developing your career, whether you're tenured or whether you're looking to your next step. These are really, really good things to think about. For job applications, they're useful. So across the board, this is a good thing to think about you as a person. We don't often get that opportunity, and we're not often forced to think in that way. So it's a really good opportunity. And I would strongly recommend going through the process, if nothing else, than to have pushed yourself a little bit further. In terms of applying, the application timeline, so in 2021, August, the end of August, the award program will actually open. Now we're already talking about what the awards might be, so it's obviously useful to start thinking now. The applications will close at the end of October. Then in November, December, the reviews, if you get called for interview, they'll be in January into early February. And then in March, we should be coming back to you with offers. So that's the normal timeline. For your planning, anybody thinking of applying now, is please review our information on the website. It's quite extensive, and you can obviously go to the US website as well to find more. Choose your awards. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you might do that. Find a course or plan a research proposal again in the US. So understand why you're going to the US, what you want to do there, and why you should be going to the institution you're talking about. Research what it means to be Fulbright. Fulbright is a lot more than just about your area of research or the program. It's actually a cultural exchange program. So we're very much interested in you, the impacts you will have, the passions you will bring, the experience of Ireland you will bring, and the experience of the US you will bring back. That's, to be fair, probably more important to us because we fund and we support all this to some extent. We're discipline agnostic. So please do research what it means to be a Fulbrighter and how you can benefit from it, and how you can bring benefit by being a Fulbrighter, and register your interest then on Fulbright.ie. The award categories are broadly Irish Student Awards, Irish Scholar Awards, Irish Tech Impact Scholar Awards, Irish FLTA Awards, so that's teaching Irish in the US, we can talk about that. And then there is a category of Fulbright Schumann Awards, which is a little bit outside of the Irish Commission doesn't run it. It's still a Fulbright program, but it actually runs through the Belgian Commission. That's really, you're looking at awards that maybe are at a happy EU level of EU and US interactions, so they're larger scale issues that you might be dealing with. Just to mention then the difference between the student awards and the scholar awards. The scholar awards, you're typically an academic postdoctoral, typically, or you have 5 years relevant professional experience. Students typically are postgraduate research, so a PhD or master's program. Again, the different awards that you will see have different eligibility, so please also look at that. So as I mentioned with the student awards, for visiting researchers or degree-seeking students, you should establish your affiliation or apply for a degree course with the US institution. They're for 4 to 12 months duration. So 4 months really is the basic time. That's typically for people who are applying for a research-based, for visiting research-based award. If you're going for course, a degree-seeking course, they'll typically be 10 to 11 months in the US. The other awards is scholar awards, which they're scholar and professional really are in the same category. They're in all disciplines. You must possess a PhD or 5 years relevant professional experience to research and lecture in the US. Again, please also look at the awards, the scholar awards, to understand where different eligibilities might apply. Please establish an affiliation with the US institution. These are for 3 to 12 months. And again, three months is the minimum that you can go for. We have very special awards, Irish. These are the only types of awards in the world. Is Tech Impact Award that allows people to go for a shorter period. Sort of people with PhDs or professionals, probably heavily focus on professionals and active researchers. So you can go for 2 weeks to 3 months duration. Our recommendation is that the minimum you actually would go for is a month, but you could technically go for 2 weeks. And we would obviously expect that you'll do a lot in the 2 weeks and that you're going to open up great opportunities beyond that point. In fact, all of the awards hope and suggest that this is what you will do. Irish Language Awards, Cecil's going to talk about them, but it's teach Irish and take classes at designated US colleges. So every year US colleges apply to the Fulbright program to say that they would host an FLTA. We go through the process of selecting FLTAs and then we do our best to match them, the best FLTAs with the best institutions. And so you don't have to identify an institution in this case, you just have to identify that you want to teach Irish in the US. It's a maximum 10 months duration. I think we say maximum, I think they all are 10 months as it stands. And again, people like Cecily can provide a wealth of further information for you on the experience and also the do's and don'ts. Now, so we would have all disciplines awards that allow for, across any discipline. But then we have some very specific sponsored awards as well. And I put down here, hint, be strategy aware, and be innovative. And I think that's because you might look at something like, depending on everybody on the call, but at Teagasc and go, well, Teagasc isn't really my area, but actually look at what Teagasc are interested in, which is, it's across many disciplines, and that's the way the world has moved. So I would say the same for EPA, GSA, innovation, bringing for you bringing your interest maybe in Ireland talks about it's really for innovation and business abroad. So again, you can be a lot of scope. I think to institutions such as Smithsonian and exploratory valedictorian and the Harry Interesting Awards there as well. And we have NUI Awards and HRB Health Impact Awards as well. So I'm going to talk about those.
Zara, I think some people are saying that the audio is dropping out a little bit. Do you want me to share the presentation? Yeah, you're dropping out every couple of seconds there.
Sure, yeah, if you can.
Yeah, if I'll just open that presentation. That might help a little bit with the connection there. Sligo. Second now.
Hopefully people can read these.
Is my screen appearing there? Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'll just get to your slide.
So there we are, 17.
Yep.
Still have trouble hearing me?
If you want to just continue on there, and we'll see if it
drops. Please take over. Thank you, Ron.
Yep.
Okay. So again, all of this information is available on our website. We don't need to go through it. I've spoken briefly about it, but please do consider what awards you might like to apply from. So the information required then are personal information and CV, personal statement, Fulbright statement. I can't say enough about these parts. Because really we're very interested in you. So we want to find out about you. So these are the parts that you spend a lot of effort and time on. These are the parts that we probably all are not used to doing. It's not something we're typically asked to do, but again, it's a worthwhile part doing. And even as I mentioned, alluded to previously about taking this little step yourself on deciding what you might want to do next, filling this information out is very, very useful. Obviously, your project statement needs to make sense to you first, because then you have to convince us of how it makes sense. And also your the institution that you want to liaise with in the US. It should make sense to them as well. Have 3 recommenders and able to provide your transcripts for student, passport copy, samples of work for artists, 3 to 4 hard copies, 3 I think probably is sufficient. And letter affiliation for researchers and scholars. This is what we would expect. You might not have that at time of application, but certainly at time, as time progresses, we would expect, and if you get the interview, we would expect that you know exactly where you're going. Sometimes you don't know exactly where you're going, so that can be adjusted for. So preparing your applications to research objectives, the rationale, I'm going to come back and say a rationale for going to the USA. Why not somewhere else? That's a key thing you'll have to be able to stand over. I think it should make sense for you as well. So if it makes sense and there's a rationale there for you, it'll be easily explained to us and job done. So explain the research question with objectives, methodology, and expected results. Again, talk about what it is you're going to do and where you're going to get to. If it's a taught course, then talk about how that's going to impact you, where you want to go and what you want to do and what you want to be, and the passion maybe that you are going to develop from that point onwards. So the impact is very important as well. The impact it will have on you and the impact you will have going forward. These are important things for you to think about and be able to tell us at the Commission. Next slide then, preparing your application. As again, just saying, reiterating this point because it's so important, it's about you personally. Tell us about you. Your personal, professional ambitions and motivations and interests. We are truly interested in that. We hope you achieve in the US and upon your return. So this isn't about your work. This is about you and the connections you might make and the impacts that you'll bring and the role and the benefit of being a Fulbrighter. Understand what being a Fulbrighter is, because it is a tangible thing. And most Fulbrighters and the 2 Fulbrighters on the call here today can talk about that tangible part of being a Fulbrighter. So don't rehash your study objective, essay or CV. We want to find out about you. So the hint again is saying in Fulbright program, we invest in people. It's people we're most interested in. Next slide, please. And we do welcome candidates from underrepresented communities, areas of research, home organizations and higher education institutions, geographical areas, ethnicities and their abilities. Again, Fulbright is about people, so share all aspects of who you are. This is a big part of the Fulbright program and has become an even bigger part. We're delighted to say it's become a bigger part. So finding a host, who do you want to work with? Research the experts in your field, understand where their interests might lie. Hopefully it's pushing an open door when you ask them, can I go work with you, or can I apply for your program? Reach out to Fulbright Irish and US alum, use the existing links, check with the sponsors, ask your mentors. Many may already know a lot about the Fulbright program. Select a degree or choose a host institution. Again, I'm going to say the point, it should make sense to you first. So you should be saying things like, I need to go to such and such a place because they have this, or the people working there are this good, or it would benefit, or I can bring my area of research there and it's going to have a big impact there. Next slide, please. Creative Ireland, Museum, Fellowships. Again, these are very specific to the three institutions we mentioned about. One thing is, please, specific eligibilities, and you must seek a letter of support from the host, the institutions from either Harry Ransom Exploratory or Smithsonian, because you will be connecting them with an existing program they have. So you must also connect through that program. Next slide, please. We have a number of law associated awards, may not be relevant here, but if you apply to any of these institutions, they will guarantee you a fee waiver. So that's a big starting point for anybody applying for a law LLM program. Next slide, please. We have other associated awards, then again, where if you apply for either of these institutions, they can again provide you with a different range of waivers and other supports as well. So again, please look at their specific eligibilities. Next slide, please. So if you've made your application and we're at review stage where it's more technical than it is personal. And it's about 60-40 really on that stage. So we are going to look at your academic record, and even more so at your project statement of what you want to do, and see, does that make sense? So that is a technical review stage. We will also be looking at your aspects of your cultural engagement, your personal statement, and maybe where you're going to show leadership, whether you've had that experience before or not, may not matter here, but it's just a case of talking about you and in terms of the impacts you might have. If you're then called for an interview, it very much flips around, where we're more interested in the aspect of you as a person. We get a chance to talk to you, what your motivations are. It's not beyond the possibility that if I had met you in person before you come into the interview, I might ask you, things like, if you're a world-class Tiddlywinks player, please tell us about that. But again, we really want to know about the person. So be prepared to talk about that. Despite me saying this, it is shocking sometimes the people turn up at an interview and actually haven't considered that they're going to talk about themselves. They think they're going to talk about themselves through the prism of their work, but actually we want to find out about you, not necessarily through the prism of your work, but all your interests. So that's a big thing to understand. And that should apply through the review stage as well, for your application stage. Next slide, please. Schumann Awards I mentioned before. I think it's just to advise you that there's a separate date of application. If you do apply through the Fulbright Schumann program in Belgium, please advise us that you've applied for, so that we know as well that you're in the mix for that application. By all means, you could talk to us as well prior to application. Next slide, please. Okay. I'm going to take this, I'm going to stop at this point, and I'm going to ask Martin Roper to maybe just give some detail of his experience, his current and his previous experience with Fulbright. Thanks, Martin. Over to you. You're on mute.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon from the west of Ireland. I did everything wrong when I applied for a Fulbright, and that's why I'm probably the best person to talk to you today. I applied in 1993, nearly 30 years ago now, and I really did do everything wrong. I applied and I promptly left the country to visit a friend in New York. Some weeks later, I got a letter from my mother saying, there's a letter here for you, will I open it? And I wrote back, we didn't have a telephone, saying, please do. I got another letter saying, you have an interview for Fulbright in Stephen's Green in Dublin. And I knew I had to do something because I was in New York with a friend. I had to do something I'd never done, was make a phone call. I made an international phone call. Right? It wasn't in this phone box, but it was in, I used to use that phone box all the time in Ireland because we didn't have the telephone. Anyway, I rang and I asked, it was the Department of Foreign Affairs, I think in Stephen's Green, I telephoned. It was a couple of days before Christmas Day. If I could, this is how naive I was and ignorant, if I could have the interview in New York. The man at the other end of the phone said, what are you doing in New York? And I said, well, I'm visiting a friend. He said, you know, you really can't be in New York if you're applying for a Fulbright to America. We're going to say this conversation never happened. And he then said to me very kindly, if you like, he said, I can change the date and the time, but not the country for your interview. I got back rather quickly, went into the interview. I knew very little about Fulbright, and a friend had told me to apply. I didn't really know what it was. I sat down and I promptly, my knees hit the table and I knocked bottles of Ballygowan water. Bottled water was just out in those days, 1983, all over my application and the copies of my application that the interviewers had. So I knew there and then it was over. So I kind of relaxed because it was a disaster. I then was asked where I went to college, where my BA was from. I was working in a factory. I left school at 18. And the interviewers looked at each other and said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I left that blank on the application because I don't have a degree. I had literally never set foot in a university in my life. I didn't realize I should have had a degree. So the interview went on. I was certain I wasn't going to get it. I was asked why I wanted to be in America. And I said, I loved American literature. I particularly loved Black writers. And I wanted to live with Black people. Even in 1993, that was a rather odd thing. This was actually, it was January 94, the interview. To me, it was genuine. The interviewers must have thought I was insane, that I said I wanted to live amongst Black people. But I meant it, and I did, and I quoted the writers I loved and the musicians, and on it went. I then left the interview certain I wasn't going to get it. It was a disaster, I thought. And to my amazement, I got the Fulbright. And I realize now probably why. I was an unlikely candidate because I actually did unwittingly. I grew up in the inner city in Dublin. And so I was I represented cultural diversity. And that would have been obvious because my profound ignorance of the world about me shone through my eyes. I was oblivious. So amazingly, I got it, but I decided I couldn't take the Fulbright because I was terrified that if I took this Fulbright went to America and I came back, I wouldn't have a job. And I talked to a student, I was teaching at nighttime, creative writing. I talked to a student of mine who was a relative of Miles Nagopoline, the famous Irish writer, a lady in her 80s. And she told me, Martin, never let money stand in the way. I was being offered $10,000, free medical coverage, a flight over, and I wasn't going to take it. I really wasn't. I was frightened. And she said, you have to go. This will transform your life. Within a couple of years, I was running for the University of Iowa, their overseas writing program in Ireland. And for 20 years, I brought American students to Dublin, to Trinity College, which I had never set foot inside of, growing up a mile from it in Dublin. And I was bringing American students and teaching them creative writing for the best university in America. Because of the Fulbright, which ended up taking me to America, I ended up actually, first of all, getting an MFA, which was an extraordinary experience to get an MFA from the University of Iowa. And in addition to that, when I got that MFA, they asked me to teach for them. And I had to come back to Ireland because I was on the Fulbright, but I was teaching for the University of Iowa in Dublin and ultimately teaching for them full time. I went back to the United States when my 2 years passed and ended up living there for all of my adult life. I'm back now and I live in Kinvara in the west of Ireland. I'd like to, if I have a couple of minutes, give you just 4 words that really encapsulate, for those of you, for students in Sligo and anywhere else who are applying, considering applying for a Fulbright scholarship. There was 4 things I did, and I've narrowed it down over the past 30 years to 4 words. And so if you have a minute, I'm just going to share them with you, and I'm going to bring you to my classroom. My classroom is right here in the kitchen. Just bear with me. Here's the classroom. Everyone with me. This is going to take 2-3 minutes. So whether you're a student or faculty, there's a couple of things that you need to do in order to get a Fulbright or to do well in any area of life when you're going in for that interview, and hopefully you won't knock over the water like I did, is that you have to make an impact, and it has to be a high impact, and it has to be real. And this stems from 4 things. The first thing, I'm going to ask Dara and Rowan not to cut me off. Have faith. They're going to get worried in about 60, 70 seconds. The first thing you have to have is knowledge. You have to have some knowledge of your field, but you don't have to be an expert, because knowledge, another word for knowledge, is there's a small t, it's talent. I have worked over the years with the best people in the world, the most talented. They often don't, in the world of literature and writing, the world I'm in, go and get published and amount to anything. They're very talented, but they lack certain things. And it's what I've worked on, especially when I was working in New York over the years, is on these 4 things. So knowledge is one thing. And C is for consciousness or awareness, which is fundamental when I'm teaching. I'm not teaching at the moment, but usually when I teach people to be conscious, to be aware. If you've been aware since I've started talking, your mind probably wandered, you probably weren't listening to lots of what I'm saying. It's because a lot of times we're not conscious, we're easily distracted. But if you want to succeed and apply for a Fulbright and get into that interview and make an impact, you have to be fully conscious of what you're doing, right? So you've got to have a bit of knowledge, you've got to be conscious. And another thing you have to have is focus, right? You have to be really focused on what you're doing. When I was in my interview, it's for Fulbright in '94, I said, I'm going to America, I don't know how I'm going to get there, and I'm going to be with Black writers. I ended up being befriended by this man, James Allen McPherson, who was the first man to win a Pulitzer Prize in America in 1977, the first Black writer to win a prize for literature. So I pursued what I was going to do, and I did it because I was very focused. There's one last word left. It begins with a vowel. This is when I don't want you to cut me off, right? Anyone guess what that word is, right? The word is E. I don't know how you're going to remember these things, but use your imagination to remember knowledge, consciousness, focus, and E for enthusiasm. You have to be enthusiastic. The thing I did in that interview in Stephen's Green in 1994 was I was incredibly passionate and genuine. I never lied about anything. In fact, on the contrary, I thought I talked myself out of that position. It's happened to me many times in my life. You have to be enthusiastic. You have to be passionate, genuinely passionate. And if you are, you have a very high chance of succeeding. I think that's probably more than 4 minutes. So I'll stop now and hand it back to Dara, and we can have Q&A later. But it's been absolutely transformative for me in my life. I went on after that Fulbright to work for the University of Iowa, to get published in the New Yorker, to get published by a mainstream American publisher. And it stemmed from the Fulbright. I'm not making it up. It wouldn't have happened without it. And I didn't even know what I was doing. Keep it in mind. So thank you. Back to you. It's great to be part of the family, Dara. Thank you.
Martin, thank you for that. Yeah, I think I was hopeful I knew where you were going with it. To be honest, I suspect when you went into the interview, you were a breath of fresh air for the interview panel, as you said. And I think probably the fact that you spilt the water and then just chilled out. That's probably, you stopped talking through a filter and the real person came out. But actually, I suspect that, plus, as you said, the fact that what you want to do and you were so engaged. So good lessons. Actually, you don't necessarily have to do it in all that order, and there are easier ways to do it, but I think the basic of that is very good. Cecily, I would love then you to speak about your experience as well.
Thanks very much, Dara. So it's my great pleasure to be with you today, especially in Sligo IT, as I trained on the shores of Lochgill in St. Angela's College. So I'm an Irish and a home economics secondary school teacher. And as Martin was saying there, you definitely have to be passionate for what you believe in. And I'm a fluent Irish speaker from the Gaeltacht. So I'm from Gaeltacht Boosgree in County Cork, and it's certainly something that I'm very, very passionate about. So similar to Martin also, a friend of mine, it was actually a mutual friend of mine who is now a friend of mine. So that's another benefit to the Fulbright. You certainly make a lot of friends, and as they say, you can never have too many friends. Recommended that I would apply for the Fulbright. So I was teaching 8 or 9 years at secondary school level, and as I said, I have a passion for Irish, and I certainly have a passion for travel. So I thought it married the two things together very, very well. No, I had a very good interview experience, I must say. I thought they were very, very warm and welcoming in the Fulbright Commission. Before I even had sat down, they were saying, "Oh, tá coat all in gut, you have a lovely coat," and I knew we were off to a good start from there. As I said, the interview went very well. There was a little bit about teaching a lesson, so I had drawn up my primary school posters from all the way from Cork up in the air coach, and they went down a treat in the commission. So it didn't really surprise me. I knew it was it went very well. So I was happily then gladly to be offered my Fulbright experience. I had a little few hurdles to jump myself trying to get a career break from my own job, but I managed to do that, and it was fantastic to get all the publicity from Fulbright, to be in all the papers, all the social media. Like, the publicity was fantastic. It was really, really well received. It was fantastic for my secondary school to be put on the map, for St. Angela's College in Sligo to be put on the map. It was fantastic. So that was lovely. We had a few great experiences up in the Royal College of Surgeons and in Dublin Castle before we went away. And we had orientation in Arkansas in America, which definitely would be not a tourist spot that you would be visiting. So it was lovely to see another part and get another excuse to see another part of America. Again, a very warm welcome there. A little anecdotal story, myself and another girl, Yvonne White, who was with me, we went into an antique shop and looking for directions to the local farmers market because there was no tourist attractions in where we were in Arkansas. And they gave us directions to the farmers market, and then they followed us up the street to invite us to their home for dinner that evening, and their son happened to be a chef. So it ended out to be a fantastic experience. So we have lots of stories from that. And on I went to Montana then, where I taught Irish, elementary Irish to beginners in the University of Montana. And I was delighted that my head of department was Corkman, Trelach O'Rear Dawn, and then the other girl, Ellen Corbett, who was teaching with me, she had a degree in translation. So it just shows you don't have to be a teacher to apply for the Fulbright. She had a degree in teaching Irish and German, and she did a fantastic job teaching as well and was great company in Montana. And certainly I loved Montana. I went to, when I was asked in the Fulbright interview where I wanted to be placed, I said I was open and willing to go anywhere, and they certainly matched me to my where I should have been, my destination and my destiny. I'm definitely a country person, and as they call it, Big Sky Montana, and the high hills and the lakes and the rivers and the active lifestyle of skiing, slope skiing, cross-country skiing, kayaking, canoeing, hunting, everything like that was definitely up my alley. So between the combination of the fantastic weather, people were always talking about the snow, but the summer was absolutely beautiful. The snow was fabulous when it came. And the combination of the warm, welcoming people, their interest and their passion for the Irish language, the environment, and my fabulous work in the university, which was fantastic as well. The opportunity to study in the university. I studied nutrition there and psychology, as it was a nice link to my home economics. And just all the connections, all the lifelong friends I made big connections when I came home during the summer. I was teaching online to other groups in different parts of America. We were very fortunate, and the mid-year conference was held in Washington, D.C. So we got to see all the hotspots that was on the television, the White House and the Capitol and all the rest. So we extended our stay and stayed an extra few days after the conference and was there before the conference to make the most of Washington, D.C. And at Christmas time went on to New York to see the bright lights of New York, especially at Christmas time. And flew down to Florida then. Nobody will have any pity on us. They'll think we didn't do any work. Went to Florida then for a trip, and even managed to make it home for a trip for my niece's christening, and back to Montana then again, to get ready for all the festivities and all the activities that would be on for St. Patrick's Day. So certainly Fulbright has definitely changed me as a person. It has changed me personally. It has changed me professionally, all for the better. I have an experience that the room just goes quiet when I mention that I've been in Montana, and the whole room seems to listen to me and to hear me tell my story, and which is lovely. It's really, really fantastic. And as I said, to make those links, we had a local suppliers here who makes clothes, Lee Valley Clothing, and they have suppliers in, they supply a shop in Montana, in Butte, which I had traveled to. So it was lovely again to make the connection for both the lady in Montana who sells those clothes and for our local suppliers. I suppose then as well, it fuels your passion. So I'm very passionate about the Irish language. Sometimes I suppose it's hard to stay passionate about at times. So it definitely fuels your passion, and it gives you that group or that bubble of people that you can share such a common passion with and make more connections with. And as Dara said earlier with the alumni, it's always, it's always there for you, and vice versa. It was only the other night I was doing a Tránageist table quiz with a group from Canada, that we were invited to as well. So it's lovely to keep that connection, and it was lovely to have something to do and a lovely community to meet up with on Zoom on a Thursday night when there's nothing else happening. So it was lovely. So I think that's probably my 5 minutes. I'm known to go on, especially when I start. So I don't know if that's enough or if there's anything else you want me to add, Dara.
Cecily, I was going to ask you, thank you very much. I was going to ask you, just have you one standout memory?
Yes, I do. And have I one? And I do. It was on the 18th of December last year. Myself and two very good friends that I have from the Fulbright Commission now, we visited the White House. And I haven't met anybody who has visited the White House. I've met nobody. Unless anybody here is going to speak up and say that they've been inside the White House. So it was absolutely fantastic. One of the girls, again, Yvonne White, she organised it. She had links in America, and we got in. We got we got in. We got a tour. We got the pictures, and I suppose it wasn't until you come home and you see it. It's been publicised so much on the television, and I've been in the front door and I've been out the back door, and not many people can say that.
Perfect. Thank you. Just for everybody kind of listening in, I think one of the things you can take from both Martin and Cecily is that they almost didn't talk about the work they did. It was about the experience they had, and that's actually what we want. That's the experience and the connection they make. It's a cultural exchange program at its heart through education. So thank you both for that. I'm going to move on to the next slide, if you don't mind. There's a couple or two. I'll come back to them at the end. Just for anybody on the call, I won't belabor this point. We're getting to the end of a Wednesday. Is it the way it is Wednesday, isn't it? But there are US Student Awards, US Scholar Awards, and again, students and scholars can come to Ireland, can come to your institution. You can invite them, or you can have a specific award set up that they apply for. The Specialist Award is very much an institutional level, where you as an institution can identify that there's some areas you would like to work with, and you can invite a US specialist. Because they're applying for a Fulbright, it tends to be pushing an open door, so they're a lot more eager to come if they're going to have a Fulbright. For many American academics, having a Fulbright is on their bucket list. And then there's Global Scholar Awards as well. It's another program. Again, this is about bringing Fulbrighters, US Fulbrighters, to your institution or to your department to work with you. So please have a look at that if it's of interest, and engage with us further on it. Thanks, Rowan. Next slide. The specialist, I just mentioned that, so it is a shorter term award. Again, it's very much pushing an open door, and you apply to us as an institution. Thanks, Rowan. Next slide. I think we can go past that slide as well. Get to next steps. Perfect. Okay. So we would say reach out to people, really, select your host institution, understand why you're going and where you're going. If you can't quite figure that out, do talk to other Fulbrighters. Have a look at who writes in your area, or what program runs well in your area. I would say that don't always consider you have to go to the Ivy League colleges. In fact, we tend to find that people have the best experiences when they go to institutions in the US that are maybe not the Ivy League ones, but again, can be stellar. I had a conversation with somebody in Oklahoma City 2 years ago now, and it wasn't last year. It feels like last year, but it was actually 2 years. And I said, well, what's good about Oklahoma City? And she said, well, for example, we have the biggest number of graduates employed on Broadway. So their program, you can go to NYU and do theatre studies there, but not have the same guarantee of being employed on Broadway as you would have going to Oklahoma City. So the point I'm trying to make is that that you can find fantastic courses and people all across the US. It's a big country. And the other thing I would say is that if you go to some of the smaller cities, sometimes you will be a rock star there. You'll be an Irish Fulbrighter, and you'll be considered to be a rock star. If you go to somewhere like New York, you're obviously going to be a much smaller fish in a bigger pond. So it can, and that might suit you. It can impact on your experience as well. So please do research where you want to go. Talk to Fulbrighters about the experience and how they applied and the do's and don'ts. You can query us. I would say trawl through the website fulbright.ie for a lot of the information there. And then when you have a little bit of information, then maybe that's the best time to actually talk to Fulbrighters or talk to other people who know about the program in your institution. So I think I've said all I need to say about that. I'm just going to have a look at the quick questions there. There's a question, how many apply and how many are granted? How many apply is such a piece of string, but in probably over 150 anyway. But if we're talking about Ireland, we would probably give out just under 40 awards across all the Irish programs, slightly less than across the US programs as well. And there was a question about, I just need to scroll up. Thank you.
Yeah, there was a question about spouses. Would they get a visa?
Yeah,
or
so you can come under.
options?
So you come under that visa. You come under that visa program, and you can bring other dependents as well. Now we don't have financial supports for your dependents. It's for the primary applicant. That's all we would have.
Yeah. And I think Martin, have you asked to answer this one? So there's a person and they're in a 5-year course and they're in their second year and they're wondering, would it be realistic for them to apply for a Fulbright? I think I know what the answer is here, Tara, but if you want to.
A 5-year course, undergraduate or postgraduate?
So they are studying architecture in Sligo and it's a 5-year course and they're in their second year. And they're wondering, is it too early to apply?
Yeah, so you have to be a postgraduate. You would have to be a postgraduate to apply, or be a postgraduate at the time of application. So if you're just going to finish your degree this year, during the summer, then no, it wouldn't be a problem because you apply, really the final application goes in at the end of October. But if you're several years away from it, that probably it is too early to apply. Having said that, it's great that you might think about this pathway and what you might want to do. It's something probably most of us on the call haven't done at an undergraduate level, think enough about where we wanted to go beyond that. So if it is too early for you, it's great that you're thinking at this point, because that same thinking will land you in many different interesting places, you know, so continue thinking about that. And maybe then when it's appropriate, apply for a Fulbright.
I think one just popped in there. Are you able to defer an award?
No. No, having said that, because of the pandemic, this has been the first year that the Fulbright program in the US has ever allowed any deferrals. So it was very special. So if, God forbid, we're going through another pandemic in a couple of years' time and they have to defer, possibly, but normally no.
And one came in from Deborah, who did an awful lot of work helping me organize this, and thanks a million, Deborah. She was asking if the slides and the video are going to be shared afterwards, and I can confirm that. I will be sending the video shortly after this, after we finish up, and I'll also send you on the slides. And just to note also that we're all quite approachable. So the panelists are all CC'd in that email. So if you do have questions subsequently, feel free to drop us an email. No question is too small or anything, so do feel free to reach out to us and follow us on social media, just so you'll know when the awards open up, and keep an eye on our website. So if there's any more questions, do feel free to pop them in the very last minute here. But I'd like to thank Martin and Cecily. I've been calling you different names all day, Cecily, but
I get used to, don't worry, I don't take any offense.
Yeah, Dara was like, I don't think that's her name, Rowan.
And I'm slow to correct people as well.
Thanks so much for your time. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Martin, thank you in particular for that presentation. It certainly kept focus and attention. So it's very appreciative. Listen, thank you again as well to Cecily, and thanks Rowan, and thanks to everybody who applied. Again, I'm going to reiterate the point, don't be afraid to apply, because there's a lot you can develop on the way on to that journey to application, and you can reuse it for so many other things. So we're very interested to hear from you. Okay, thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Perfect. Thank you all very much.